China's strategy in the trade war threaten U.S. tech companies. And this was very interesting because I didn't even know they had any sort of jurisdiction over Google. But Beijing just started a probe of Google, and they now have Apple and Broadcom in their sights. Chinese officials are building a list of U.S. technology companies that can be targeted with antitrust probes and other tools, hoping to influence the tech executives who are heavily represented in President Trump's orbit. People familiar with Beijing's strategy said the goal was to collect as many cards as possible to play in expected negotiations with the Trump administration over U.S.-China issues, including tariffs. Beijing has already said it's investigating NVIDIA and Google over alleged antitrust issues. Again, not sure what they can do about Google. I didn't even know Google had any presence in the country, but I guess they can put the screws to them one way or another. Other American companies in its site include Apple, Silicon Valley tech company Broadcom, and semiconductor design software firm Synopsys. Synopsys has $35 billion acquisition awaiting approval by Beijing. So maybe they bought some Chinese IP and it won't go through unless Trump plays ball. China needs to use all of the leverage it can to hit back at the U.S., and antitrust is one of the most useful, says a tech policy specialist. And so China is on a chip gathering exercise, likening the countries to poker players. They want to come to the table to negotiate and need something to play with. The strategy carries risk, though. American companies recently have been less willing than in Trump's first term to go to bat for China, and the threats could backfire by discouraging companies from investing in the country when that is what Beijing wants. Beijing has added to its regulatory tools in recent years, drawing lessons from America's approach. In 2020, they created what's called the Unreliable Entity List, the companies mimicking a U.S. entity list that blocks Chinese technology leader Huawei and others from doing business with Americans. In 2022, China amended its antitrust laws to tighten rules on anti-competitive mergers. Chinese officials hope to get the attention of people in Trump's world, including the executives who sat by his side on Inauguration Day, such as Google's Sundar Pichai and Apple's Tim Cook, which is interesting because Tim Cook wasn't actually in the photo with Trump. Somehow, Tim Cook is such a master negotiator that he's able to, I think he donated to the inauguration fund, but he wasn't in the front row, showing that he's not all in on Trump in this kind of iconic way, which also makes him a little bit more fragile to Trump, but then maybe a little bit more durable.
Yeah, Tim is in a rough spot, right? China's been so important to Apple's growth and is now shrinking, right? We covered this last week. Apple iPhone sales are down almost 10% in China. And Tim and the Apple exec team are trying to blame this on the rollout of Apple Intelligence. I don't think anybody's buying that. Also, if you produce the amount of products that Apple produces in China, Apple literally would barely be able to survive in many ways without China. And so he's in a rough spot. And I think one thing, looking at this article and hearing how they're positioning China, trying to sort of gather their bargaining chips, right? Mm-hmm. It seems that in 2016 and for the first Trump admin, the positioning from people just felt like Trump was wildly unpredictable and just a little bit crazy, right? They were like, we don't know what he's going to do. He's just sort of doing things. And every single day you refresh the news and it's like, what is Trump doing today? This time around, I think that other countries and people internally in the US are thinking of him more as, okay, there's a method to the madness and he is playing his game, right? He's said, as in his book and in many, many interviews, he just loves doing deals. And so he is playing a very, very high stakes game of poker. And I think other countries are starting to recognize that and see themselves as, okay, we're playing in this sort of geopolitical poker, and we need to understand what our leverage is, what our bargaining chips are. And really they're looking at it as like, okay, we're actually playing a very, very high stakes game, basically betting our economies on each other and betting, these different aspects of leverage. So, anyways, we'll see. I think,
I mean, it's certainly going to show up in the big tech earnings next quarter. We'll certainly be tracking this. This is an interesting lever to pull. It's not one that's been top of mind. There's a little bit more context here on mergers and antitrust. Mergers between multinationals typically require approval from antitrust regulators around the globe, and they can fall apart if they fail to gain even one major country approval. We saw this with Figma and the EU. The EU has blocked a lot of mergers, and a lot of Americans are like, it's two American companies getting together, but of course, every company is multinational at this point, and so these multinational merger approvals are very important. In 2018, amid U.S.-China trade conflicts in the first Trump administration, Qualcomm terminated its proposed purchase of Dutch chip maker NXP Semiconductors after failing to obtain clearance from China. Imagine what a bummer that is. You're ready to do the deal, and then China says no, and you're back. You don't get your liquidity event today. You got to keep grinding, although I'm sure it's a big company, NXP. U.S. chip maker
Maybe
Broadcom tried to take over VMware. That was valued at $61 billion when it was unveiled in May 2022. This was in peril until a meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping in November 2023. The two leaders agreed to dial down tensions. Shortly afterward, China greenlighted the deal at the 11th hour with conditions requiring Broadcom to supply to Chinese customers. So yeah, it's that trading chips on the poker table.
Yeah, so I don't think that the average person understands just how bad the communication channels have been between Beijing and Washington have been. I was able to go to a talk last year with a US China expert from this group, AEI, that's based in Washington, and they have sort of chapters around the US. And he basically said that, we put on the, Xi came to San Francisco, and there was this big deal. If you remember that, I don't know, was it last year or the year before at this point,
Yep.
where we cleaned up San Francisco, we made it nice, and we made it look like there's a real relationship there between our leaders. But it's so bad that there's not even really like direct, phone email lines. Like, it's very much like happening through channels and almost playing a game of telephone in many cases. And so
this was the case in the Cold War. Kissinger was a back channel to China during the Nixon administration, and it was extremely controversial for them to open up those lines of communication. Although now it's kind of the opposite, because the relationship is actually falling apart more than it was rekindling. But Kissinger had to go to Nepal and then like smuggle his way in and then meet with Zhou Enlai, the Chinese like right-hand man of the premier and stuff. And then eventually Nixon went, and that was really controversial. Now, I think Trump is ready to play ball. I mean, he went and shook hands with Kim Jong-il, right? Or Kim Jong-un. And so he's ready to play ball, but he just wants to be able to do a deal that's good in his terms. And there's so many chips on the table. And if you're the CEO of a tech company, you don't want to be one of the chips that Trump doesn't care about. That's the worst thing you can possibly be, is not on Trump's good side. And he's like, oh yeah, like I don't like the Broadcom guy anyway. So yeah, you can totally screw them over. No, you want to be donating to his inaugural fund. No matter what you think about the guy, you got to be on his good side, so that when the time comes, he's ready to say, you know what, that's an American company. I care about them. They had my back, and I'm going to have their back in this negotiation. I'm not just going to let you screw them over. Anyway.
And people, if you're purely in the business world, business is cutthroat, right? Everybody that started a company has a competitor that they hate and that they're trying to take market share from. And it's similar sort of dynamic where, you don't want to be overtly at war with this company, but day to day, you feel like you're in conflict and you're fighting. And oftentimes in those situations, you'll still have the contact information of your competitor, right? Like I'm sure you've had open, fairly open conversations with, where you'll have the number of a company that you're competing with, right? And you'll even talk and be friendly and stuff like that. And I think that's generally good. We have less than that with China, between our governments. Like there's not, it's not, and people have freaked out in the past with Trump, just calling up other countries because he's taking very much the sort of business approach to government, which is, really not the norm. So, anyways, it's I don't know. I feel like some of the best, most pointed commentary on the U.S.-China relationship is coming out of Palantir. Now
Mm.
they have some, specifically their CTO has made some, very clear comments like, we need to embrace, they're a private company, right? They're in service of their shareholders and because of how many government contracts they have in many ways in service to the government, but they're able to come out and say, no, we are at war with China, and we need to be honest about that, and our actions need to reflect that. But uh, our leaders aren't saying that, right? They can't say that because it just stokes too much controversy and potentially fear. It's not necessarily there's not a lot of value coming from that necessarily. So,
Oh, well,
anyways, let's see.
well, let's
One of
skip
one of our
forward.
one
Yeah.
of our one of our listeners, I'm blanking on his name, is Gigalong Timu. So he really liked our Timu coverage, and he says, I forget, but he was posting and saying if Timu hits like some certain share price, he's becoming a millionaire. So I want them to hit that price just because I want one of our listeners to hit that milestone. But then I want him to sell and then like,
Yep.
then get aggressive. So um,
Oh, it's wild.